Ladies and gentlemen,
we interrupt this program with a special bulletin. America is now under martial law. All constitutional rights have been suspended. Stay in your homes. Do not attempt to contact loved ones, insurance agents, or attorneys. Shut up. Do not attempt to think, or depression may occur.
The revolution will not be televised. If you haven't checked out Jello Biafra, I recommend it. I'm sure it's quite a famous song that he did called Martial Law. And it's just hits the nail on the head, because that's exactly what it probably would be like anyway. I just thought it was quite funny because there's these protests that are spreading further afield into different places around America. Obviously the ones in Greece are ramping up and everything, and that's the Greek riots obviously being sort of a little bit covered but not much. Obviously took media a while to catch on to the Wall Street Occupy Wall Street protests. I still haven't really sort of decided what I think about the Occupy Wall Street. It's good in some ways, but I think the worry is that, is it going to get hijacked by, some group or some internal force that's going to basically end up being a force not so much for good but for worse. So I think people need to be aware of agent provocateurs and kind of ask themselves what do they want the outcome to be other than merely protesting. Having said that, obviously that some people have got very strong views about it. Some people are saying that the whole anonymous group are basically leading people into a trap. You hear all these. There was this message from Anonymous where they say that if the politicians and the New York Police Department or whatever don't do certain things by a certain time, then there's going to be a certain end result. And I think they said that the deadline was like tomorrow, so I guess we'll see what happens if anything happens. But I don't know. I don't know much about all of that, so I can't say for sure what I think about Anonymous and whether I think that people are being led, like sheep into a pen. So I don't know. I think it's good to be protesting, but at the same time, I think that you don't want to create a situation where there's actually more of a crackdown on our freedom, because suddenly it's an excuse for the establishment to get all their riot cops and army onto the streets or whatever it is, all in the name of keeping the peace, which is quite ironic really. Seeing as they're the ones that go and bomb other countries and things. So the reason I called this "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised" is because obviously we've got all of these protests springing up around America, around the world as well, but I think it's particularly notable that it's in America because we haven't really seen much of an uprising so far, apart from obviously you had things like the Tea Party movement and things like that, which of course got hijacked by less trustworthy or less honest people or movements or groups. So I've been watching a bit of all the different news channels today, and today we've had obviously the Conservatives conference and David Cameron's awful speech, which I could bear about 4 minutes of before falling asleep, and just couldn't bear any more of it. So anyway, apart from that, we've seen a little bit on the Occupy Wall Street in the media, a little bit about the Greek riots. Haven't seen anything on the mainstream media about all the other protests in America. The only place that I saw it was on Russia Today. So I think it's kind of true in a way that if there is a revolution taking place, that the mainstream media would do everything in its power to try and quell any dissent, and to try and not report on it, and to try and make everyone just think that, you know, everything's just hunky-dory and there's just a few weirdos out there who want to protest. And, you know, we saw back in England people like Brian Hoare, who obviously devoted, you know, a large chunk of his life to standing up against what he believed in, and that took the form of pitching his tent outside Westminster. And you know, and I really have a lot of respect for him. You know, rest in peace, Brian. But because he absolutely stood up for what he believed in, and he wasn't afraid of what people kind of thought of him or made him out to look like. And in the media, everyone, you know, the journalists were all just like, oh, he's an eyesore, and, you know, this crazy old man, and all of that sort of thing. You know, and I just kind of, I hate the way that the media just totally ridicules anyone that actually has something decent to say and stands up. You know, it's the same with any of the celebrities that have come out and been sort of so-called like truth seekers or whatever, and or, you know, questioned like 9/11, or questioned you know, war in Iraq, or questioned loads of things. And they get ripped apart in the media as well, and they get kind of demonized and made to look crazy. And I just think, I mean, Fox News is the worst for that. That's why you couldn't even pay me to watch Fox News now, because it's just the most awful, you know, childish sort of character assassination, one-sided TV show that I've ever seen in my whole life. So, yeah, I mean, all of these things, protests that are starting to happen, that are springing up, who knows kind of what it will lead to. I think the trouble is with protests alone, a lot of the time don't end up having a massive effect, just because, you know, the politicians, they just turn around, they're just like, oh, a few of the peasants on the streets, you know, the proletariat are you know, are protesting, and let them eat cake kind of thing, and we'll just get on with our, you know, billionaire lifestyles and our warmongering and our corruption and everything else. So I think the way forward is definitely, you know, lawful rebellion, and taking being kind of very clever about the way that we go about creating a different kind of society, and a different kind of what's the word? I don't know, changing the status quo. Because it's all very well sort of bringing about change, but we want to bring, what kind of change do we want to bring about? And we don't want to end up, firstly, we don't want to end up becoming what we're fighting, and we don't want to end up in a worse situation where we've sort of brought about our own demise and our own downfall. So I don't know, it's just some thoughts for today, really. And it was good to see all these sort of protests in America. And I think there's a poll that I saw today that 99% of Americans say they feel poor. Well, that's not really surprising, seeing as in America 1% of the total population own more than the total, have more wealth put together than 90% of the population of America. So everyone talks about America being, you know, the land of the free and the land of opportunity, but in fact it's just, you know, I would say going to somewhere like India or China, or, you know, I don't know, anywhere in the world other than America, you're probably going to have more of an opportunity of an equal society. I mean, America it's kind of got this glossy facade, but you know, and this isn't more again. It's not about the American people, of course, because most of them are decent people. It's more about the American politicians and the American sort of corporate fascist dictatorship that they've got going on. So that's all I was going to say for now. I think that yes, the peasants should revolt. So I'm all for that, but we need to be careful which direction we take it in, and don't allow people to hijack it for their own ends and for negative outcomes and for more brutality. And I think it's important to remain aware of the fight. So I better go because I think Fudge is chewing something and I don't know what it is. So bye for now.